Okay, I guess we got to get this out of the way. Welcome, everybody, to the Phil Talk Sports Podcast. Joining me is the one guy that maybe had a worse weekend than me, Nick Rice. He had a couple bouts with the big C word illness that I guess you're not supposed to say on podcasts. But, Nick, thank you for being here. This is a more somber noted episode, but I'll just start out by saying I'm glad you're starting to feel better.
Appreciate it, man. I can't believe it's Valentine's Day too. So that's like another weird wrinkle in this whole thing. Not that too many of us are having a great Valentine's Day, but this was quite the weekend. As soon as Super Bowl weekend got started, I started feeling the shivers and all that stuff. And then on Super Bowl Sunday, man, I couldn't even like pull up my arm. Like that was how fatigued I was. And maybe that was for the best based on what happened on that day.
Well, I had all those same feelings, but for totally different reasons.
Yeah, yeah,
So
for
we'll
sure.
we'll just get into it here. Super Bowl 57 has came and went. The Kansas City Chiefs won the game. Congrats to Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and all of Chiefs Kingdom. The Eagles come up 3 points short in a game that I felt if I had to summarize it to someone who didn't watch the game from the Eagles side, I would say Jalen Hurts played a near perfect game, and then he fumbled for no reason, and then he resumed having a near perfect game. Would you feel that's a fair assessment of his performance?
Very fair assessment. Yeah.
The thing I keep going back to, man, is that fumble, because it is one thing to get blindsided by a Chris Jones and fumble the ball and have it scooped and score, but that fumble came from zero contact. Like there was contact with him after the fumble to hold him there to not recover. You know, you see that every time.
And
But
came from zero slipping on the field.
yeah, for one of the few times that someone didn't slip on the field, that is another factor that we will get to. But I put the game in three, not excuses necessarily, because none of the players have made excuses. I will also not make excuses. Clearly, the Chiefs won the game. I will put Jalen's fumble at 1. I will put the field conditions at 2, which we will probably jump into here in a second. And then third, I would put the complete ineptitude performance of Miles Sanders, who touched the ball here, I think, like 4 times, fumbled once. Another touch could have been considered a fumble. I think they were correct to rule it an incomplete pass, but could have easily been ruled a fumble. So a guy who is in his contract year, that may be his last game as an Eagle. Not that I want it that way. I think Miles Sanders was a good player. I've been a fan of his since his Penn State days, but when that was kind of the game to figure out if you are getting re-signed or not, to have a performance like that. Kenneth Gainwell got in the game more than expected. I almost nailed the whole, someone to jump out that you didn't expect, because he originally looked like he scored a
Yeah.
touchdown on the first drive, and then it got, reversed and Jalen ran it in or whatever. But the fumble, I think, was a killer. And the reason I would put the field at number 2 is both teams had to play on it. I think that's very important to say. Both teams had to deal with it. But what I felt it did was neutralize the D line of the Eagles. It kind of neutralized line play in general. It made line play a mess on both sides. But when you're a team like Philadelphia, that the line is the strength of your team, it's half the reason you get there. When it neutralizes line play altogether, that's really going to take a big, chink out of your arsenal. And it was just a disappointing and embarrassing state of a field that they bragged about, that they apparently took 2 years to get ready. I don't know what was wrong with what the Cardinals played on all year. We could have probably played on that. Could have made a difference. Maybe it didn't. Who knows? But we'll never know. And it is a shame that maybe in 5 years from now, this game will be remembered for the turf more than anything that happened on it.
Well, actually, I mean, if we're going to be honest, there's also another very memorable part of the game that might actually be remembered in a couple of years.
Mm.
Um, this feels like a day that's more for you, my man, being an Eagles guy through and through. So I don't mind taking a back seat. One interesting conversation going through this week about the game was that Jalen Hurts delivered, and I'd like to get your thoughts on a guy that you have felt better about as of late, but a guy that I think for not just you, but a lot of people, and even myself, underestimated a little bit. And he really delivered in the big game.
I was wrong about Jalen Hurts graphic that I made in Photoshop that unfortunately will not see the light of day as of now, might see the light of day down the line. Would be great for that to happen. Um, and you know what? Maybe I am still wrong about Jalen Hurts because again, near perfect performance. I think you take that fumble out of it, and I've been insulted on Twitter. I've been ridiculed on Twitter for that take. And if you ever have an argument on Twitter, first of all, don't because it doesn't get you anywhere. If you give your opinion and they immediately insult you and don't give it a separate opinion, it's probably because they don't actually have one.
Yep.
I just think it's pretty clear to me that as good as Patrick Mahomes is and as good as that Chiefs offense is, you can't spot him 7 points. I don't care if that drive resulted in a punt and they eventually get the ball back 2 minutes later down the line. That's still going to make a difference than just handing somebody 7 points. I'm not the best at math, but when you spot a team 7 points and lose by three, that's kind of a big moment in my
Yep.
opinion. You know?
Well, in what sucks is that Jalen Hurts was nearly perfect,
Yep.
and Patrick Mahomes was perfect, literally perfect. They scored on every second half drive, and they probably would have went for it on fourth down if they needed to late in that ball game. But that was the difference. And what was ironic is that if anybody would have had the assistance of a running game, it would have been Jalen Hurts. But ironically, it was Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs that had the better rushing performance, which was just something you would have never saw coming. We talked about it before the game. Chiefs, if they're going to win, they're going to win one way. If the Eagles are going to win it, ironically, they only had one way going, and that was Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he, put them. I already touched on the disappointing performance of Miles Sanders. Maybe if he plays a little better, it balances out that offense a little bit more. And again, you take away that fumble and you just look at Patrick Mahomes' stats and Jalen Hurts' stats. You could argue that Jalen outplayed Mahomes in certain aspects of this game, and it just came down to
Mm-hmm.
the second half. They scored on every drive, like you said. So people look at the defense, and again, I compare that to the neutralization of the field, where if you're not going to get this team got pressure all year long. They were the third most, the team with the third most sacks in NFL history. So if you're not getting, they're used to getting pressure with four, let alone the front seven. So for this field to kind of neutralize it, and like that might sound like an excuse, but like we've all seen the clips. It was like a water slide out there.
Yeah.
Guys are falling not
The
because
Chiefs couldn't supply pressure either. So,
absolutely. So like
yeah.
if guys are falling down before they make contact with the guy that's supposed to be blocking them, that's how you know. And like you mentioned, the other thing that this game will be known for is the hold at the end. To me, it's really a non-issue. It's a hold by definition. It's ballsy to make that hold call in that moment. But at the end of the day, like you said, if that hold doesn't happen, I know Buckner missed a field goal earlier, but like he's still maybe in range before that. Maybe they run up the middle and get 4 more yards and kick the field goal then. There's a chance that Hurts gets the ball with maybe a minute to go or so. And that's what I think a neutral fan like yourself, if you weren't, fighting for your life that night, would have maybe liked to see, what does Hurts do with the game on the line,
Yeah.
down by three with a minute left. That is what football fans, the NFL, was robbed of, I think, due to that call. I don't think it cost them the game necessarily, but it cost us the ability to see Jalen Hurts in that moment.
Uh, in the moment, maybe I was a little more hot about it, but I still am. I think as an official, you cannot make a call like that if and this is the thing that's so frustrating. I bet as an NFL player, I would be irate because you hear the media built-in narratives, which I can get behind. One being you call it one way, one in the particular game, and then once it gets tight, you swallow your whistle a little bit more. I can
Yeah,
get behind that narrative. I can
definitely.
also get behind the narrative of they're going to let them play. That's another thing you hear of for years as to why a clear penalty didn't get called. But in this scenario, where clearly the refs changed their narrative the other way late in the ball game, we're not going to call a hold in the second quarter, but we're going to call it in the fourth quarter. I mean, all these narratives fall apart. These officials just need to be better. With that being said, like you said, it was technically a hold. The Chiefs were still in position to take the lead. But as a fan, I just don't want an entire minute and 47 seconds decided on a play like that. And my only other comment on the penalty was it was a 3rd and 8. I thought those type of penalties increase 5 yards, replay the down. I didn't realize you're giving them 8 yards and a first down there. But um, crazy to me that the game came down to that, and it's just unfortunate that in that situation, um, it appeared to me that Mahomes wouldn't have completed the pass anyways, and Bradbury gets a hand on there. Just very very unfortunate all the way around.
Yeah, that's a whole other argument of if the ball was catchable or not. I still put that hold nonsense. I still rank it fourth. I would put Jalen's fumble number one factor, Miles
Absolutely,
Sanders'
yeah,
poor performance as the second factor, the field state as the third factor, and then I'll put the hold and that whole controversy as the fourth factor. So it's definitely something that mattered, but it wasn't the most important thing. And another thing that went weird that day, and like this hasn't been talked about much anymore, and it maybe doesn't need to, but right at the end of the half, they got I'll call it a QB pressure on Mahomes, and he went down and he seemed to be milking that ankle a little bit. And
yeah.
I'm on Twitter, and there's certain people that we know that are mutual friends of other friends of ours that are trying to hand us the trophy and jinx us and say, oh, Eagles win now because Mahomes is clearly they're going to keep him out of this game, and we're going to get Chad Henne for the whole second half. Like, I don't know if this guy's never watched football before, but like things happen at halftime. And I got to say though, a part of me wanted to think like, did he milk that on purpose a little bit? Because he came out. We know there's numbing things, totally legal things. I'm not accusing them of anything like that, but
Yeah.
he went from looking like this may really affect him to like didn't affect him at all. So whatever that the Chiefs locker room adjustments did, kudos to them. But it really made me think that did he play it up for the crowd a little bit, knowing that I'll just go get this numbed and it won't be a factor in the second half.
I had a different opinion when I saw him jogging off the field the whole way going into the half. I felt him being in pain initially was the legit reaction. Him
Mm,
jogging off the field going into halftime is his fake reaction. He's just looking tough, so that way he doesn't give the Eagles an idea of, oh, this guy literally is one touch of the ankle away from being out. But I do think now that I look back at it, he might have been milking that a little bit for sure,
I think
considering how good he ran
yeah,
late in the game.
I think what got everybody was there was a shot on the sideline where he's sitting down, they're looking at the ankle, and he's like got his head on the shoulder of an assistant coach. And that was the shot that everybody looked at that was like, oh, maybe this is as bad because like the Jags game, right? That was really bad. Like he tried to go out there, he like handed the ball off twice and then came out and they're like, oh no, this is a situation here. And he came right out and you would have never known anything like that. So that was a unique thing. Again, there's so many people like I don't unfollow people on Twitter very often, but if all you do is talk football and are going to make assumptions like that and try to, I'm not superstitious, I'm a little stitious as the line says, and I don't
Yep.
know. There's
That's Eli
certain
Manning
people
for
that
you.
I don't know if they're all they're going to do is talk football, like you should probably educate yourself on the game a little more. I'll leave it at that. And it sucks to say because this is someone whose content I enjoyed for the most part, even though it's mostly Cowboys content and it's a mutual friend of ours and Hank and everything. But can't do it with this guy anymore. So he's no longer on the timeline after everything that went down. So you
It's
mentioned referees do better. I guess there's some Twitter followers that I had that also need to do better. But that is what it
yeah.
is at this point.
Well, guys, I mean, if you want to follow somebody who's going to create some entertainment in your timeline, Phil Nunziata is the guy because reading some of the sparring matches you had with guys after the game, where you go, okay, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. The Jalen Hurts thing was the best. Watching
Yeah.
you talk about how Jalen Hurts lost the fumble and they said that didn't matter, and it's like, okay, well, apparently it did because it resulted in points. So,
I mean, I
funny,
also
funny
look
stuff.
back, it's been like a day or two since those conversations were had, and I'm glad you saw that so that I'm not exaggerating. You've seen what I'm talking about. And at the end of the day, I'm like, man, look, we're all pissed about this. If it's easier for you to blame the defense than blame Jalen because he had such a great game otherwise, if that's easier for you, cool, man. Like we're all Eagles fans at the end of the day, these people that I was, jarring with or whatever. So if it's easier for you to blame the defense, then fine. But like again, maybe this is the hot take of the episode. When you share the link later, Nick, make sure you quote me here. Spotting Pat Mahomes 7 points is never a good idea. That is my hot take for this episode.
You sound like a guy who's going to be a coach very soon here, who's going to maybe use that strategy. Maybe try and score points for you, not for the other guys.
Yeah, I will be coaching a different sport, but yeah, I my offensive philosophy will be not to give the other team points. I think that's a great philosophy to build on.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really sad for you and Hank and everybody though that this didn't work out. But one silver lining I could take from this game, I don't know if you were gonna segue into this,
Mm-hmm.
is that Jalen Hurts, outside of that one mistake, did not look like a guy who, for the first couple of years of the Eagles under his tenure, were thinking about, do we need to upgrade a quarterback? I'd
Right.
say you've got one of those guys where you can sign a contract with and feel comfortable about your future with him.
I agree. The moment was not too big. If anything, he thrived in it. It looks like Lane Johnson is going to run it back. He is going to get surgery, but he is going to be back.
Okay.
Jason Kelsey is sounding positive. I think we're going to get him for another year, maybe two. Um, Fletcher Cox, I think this could be the end. We haven't heard much from him, but this is a D line that's it's been built to not replace, because that's a strong word, but like to reload at that position with a guy
Yeah.
like Jordan Davis and stuff.
Yeah,
Hassan Reddick,
Davis was definitely quiet in the playoffs, but
yeah,
I love the guy's potential, man.
yeah.
Since he got drafted, we've been on the show. I think that guy's going to be special.
And it's important to remember that that is still his rookie year, so everyone deserves time to grow, whether it's a quarterback or a defensive lineman. So I'm interested to see how he goes. I think that the big key move, of course, is Hassan Reddick, because he was on a 1 year prove it deal and he proved it in spades. So that is a guy that you're going to build the entire defensive around. Jalen is still a year or two away from needing a contract extension. He was asked about it already, and he shut it down completely and says, "I'm way more worried about being a champion. Like, I'll need to have those conversations at some point, but now is not the time." And I respect the hell out of the way he handled that, because there's other quarterbacks out there right now that are, having much different conversations about that. And as far as corners go, I don't think we're going to be able to keep everybody. I would not want to hang Bradbury's entire Eagles reputation on that one hold, but like between him and we got to figure out with Slay and everything. So there's going to be a reshuffling. I still hold back what I said. It's not totally unorthodox to think that you could be back next year. That's very tough to do. But I think it's going to be a year to two, maybe three of reshuffling before you get another real chance at it. The NFC is still pretty wide open, so that helps in this case, I think. But I think it will be a year or two before they're quite back in that situation. But this team made it a year early anyway, so maybe they'll speed that up. Also have a number 10 pick in the draft. Whether you get that difference maker there or you make a trade that brings in a lot of other assets, you never really know. The future's still bright. Proud of this team. Apparently it did not go the way we wanted to, but you still got to be proud of the run these guys went on.
Yeah, really proud of you guys for not just you guys with the Eagles, both those teams. This was a year of the Chiefs and the Eagles where a lot of folks believe that they might not even be the best teams in their own division. And I'm a Charger guy, but I heard a lot of Denver talk too. And then, of course, there was all going up into the year. Is Dallas the better team in that division, or is it you guys? So to prove a lot of guys wrong this year is really, really awesome. So even though the result wasn't what you wanted, it had to feel pretty good that this was, feel bad about a Super Bowl loss versus a team like Dallas who barely made it and other guys who didn't make it at all.
It's true, and you got to look at from the Kansas City perspective. Tom Brady's now officially retired. I think that moves Mahomes as the face of the league 100%. Two
Mm-hmm.
Super Bowls at age 27, second Super Bowl for Andy Reid. If there was any doubts of that guy's resume, those are all out the window now too. So definitely some good things. Still makes you wonder about Eric Bieniemy, man. Is this guy ever gonna make that jump, or if not now, when? And we've been saying that for a few years with him.
Yeah, he needs to be a back-to-back champion. Okay,
Apparently,
to
man.
be to be on the level of no shade, but needs to be on the level of David Coley and Lovey Smith. You know what I mean? He needs to win 3 in a row, maybe. This is crazy, but Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, if they're going to keep bringing this guy back, then they can shuffle whoever they want to at wide receiver, running back. I mean, every year it's somebody new back there helping Patrick Mahomes. Granted, a lot of folks said that this is the best offensive line in the NFL. I know Philadelphia is every bit as good as Kansas City, but they just nailed the last couple of drafts up front. Creed
Mhm.
Humphrey there, and a lot of other guys that are really helping Mahomes be one of the least sacked quarterbacks by percentage in years. So, this is very scary for me being a Charger guy, thinking that the Chiefs won the Super Bowl and they might even be a little better next year. that's
Yeah,
how
I mean,
scary they are.
I remember our season preview, and I had, the division that the Chiefs are in and the Chargers are in. We
Mm,
expected a lot more from Denver. We expected a lot more from the Raiders. We
yeah,
expect, I called it the best division in football, and for a team to come out of that division and win the Super Bowl really just shows how good they really were. And to close the book here on Jalen Hurts for a minute, only three quarterbacks have ever won a Super Bowl after losing the first Super Bowl they were in. The first one was Len Dawson after losing the first Super Bowl. He won Super Bowl four, I believe it was, the 65 wide
yeah,
power trap game. Bob Greasy lost the first Super Bowl he was in, went on to win back to back with the Dolphins. Obviously, the undefeated season, he played about half that year, but the ring still counts. And then the ultimate
right.
example of a bounce back is John Elway, who lost his first three and then came back to win two late in his career. So I will say I have as much confidence as I can that Jalen could potentially be the fourth guy on this list.
And we actually talked about that a few weeks ago, but I actually think that of those three, all of them had to have a different coach
Mm-hmm.
before they did that. I know John Elway did going to Shanahan. Len Dawson, shoot, that might be the one
I'm
where he
thinking,
had
yeah, because back
the
then
same guy.
you didn't fire coaches as quick back then, so
Right.
I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
that was the same guy still.
But yeah, Don Shula came in to help Greasy turn around. So I
Yeah,
think since Super Bowl four, so he could buck a trend that's been around for like half a century. And keeps Sirianni isn't going nowhere after what he's done
right.
turning around. And it's still amazing to me that this guy couldn't complete sentences in front of a small crowd of who's press conference guys. And then here he is in the biggest stage. And this guy was ready to rock and roll, and also ready to pull this team out of where they were a couple of years ago. So the really, really exciting future for you guys. Absolutely.
Yeah, plenty of growth by Sirianni and this coaching staff. There will be some changes. Some departures already have happened. A couple names need to be put into place. So there'll be some shuffle not only on the roster but on the coaches roster as well. So it's interesting to see where we're going to go after this. But again, hell of a run. You can't be anything but proud. This is not an episode that I looked forward to doing, but it was a necessary one. I'm glad I took
On
a
that
couple extra
note,
days to
right.
do it, though. To really let it all calm down and try to talk it as level headed as possible. So I think we did it at the right time, though. I'll say that.
My man. On that note, I have to ask this question for our audience.
Sure.
I need people to know, just maybe a sneak peek. What was the recovery process for you after the game?
Um, Immediately after, there was just a lot of nothing, just a lot of staring at the blank screen.
Numbness.
Went outside. It's actually still kind of cold here in Florida, believe it or not. So just a good 20-30 minutes in the backyard pacing. Next day I had to go to work, just tried to, bury it in the work a little bit. The house is still getting worked on. So just kind of going back to that stuff. Something that's going to help moving forward is going to an Orlando City game in a week. I'll be at the home opener for that. So I'll just try to shift into soccer mode. Hopefully that helps me a little bit. But it's definitely going to be a process, man. Like when I first came back here after the incident with the house or whatever, I did talk about how the Phillies run like helped me just because it gave me something else to focus on while we were building everything. And that was a team that nobody saw coming. This was the team that, 4 or 5 weeks into the season, everybody saw coming. So with the Phillies, you were just happy they were there. The Eagles, it very much looked like they could pull it off. I already had um, conversations of how to maybe update the tattoo that I had and stuff. I didn't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I started having those thoughts in my head, But it was
Uh-huh.
not meant to be, and hopefully those updates come at a later date. So
Do you have the 2017 Eagles somewhere?
I have
In
it's on my leg. It's just the Eagles logo and the Super Bowl trophies in the background. I'll put
Oh,
the
that's so
picture up
cool.
here. I was considering, do I just get the dates? Do I get the two different Roman numerals on the bottom of it or something?
I
These
would
are
get one for one leg, one for the other, but
Yeah,
you
that'd be
know,
a little. That's a little. I mean, I have plenty of tattoos, but I'm not trying to get one for everything like that. I was gonna take the one tattoo and try to add to it. Was gonna be the goal. But who
oh,
knows? Maybe one day I still will. But that is thoughts I had internally. I didn't want to I didn't go to my artist or anything. That'd be a little too rambunctious to think of it ahead of time. And I had a bottle of champagne sitting in the fridge. It's still sitting in the fridge. Hopefully I can bust that out for something else later this year. But that's just how it goes sometimes, man. Life as a Philly sports fan.
oh shoot, this year is. I mean, even just the heartbreaks from before, I'm sure hasn't prepared you for the Phillies, the Eagles, all that.
Yeah.
So all in the span of 100 days,
Yeah,
just
crazy to
crazy.
think. I mean, I'm a Orlando City fan, not a Union fan, but I was pulling for them in the MLS Cup. So for them to lose, that wasn't exactly a positive thing for me either. So yeah,
Mhm.
3 losses in 99 days for the city of Philly. Not a good one there. But like I said, I'm gonna try and shift into soccer mode. I'm gonna do a little T-ball coaching and just try to move forward, man. You've been teasing. I think it's a good time as any to jump to this now. You've been teasing some sort of announcement that you would like to make, and you chose this show to do it, which I appreciate. So I'm gonna give you the floor to go ahead and do that.
My man, well, hopefully I can help make you feel a little bit better. For folks who don't know, me and Phil have met over a decade ago doing an awesome YouTube project back in the infancy of YouTube on Madden 10. We broadcasted and put together one of the only series, even to date, that I've seen across YouTube of a theme like this. And for folks who don't know, we created the great teams of every franchise in NFL history, put it all together, and determine the best team ever. Um, we've done that a couple of other iterations since, but courtesy of life events and also running its course, I took a pretty long break from that, and today's the day where I announced that coming up in a little over a month that will be coming back. You'll be hearing me. You'll be hearing a lot of other guys. Hopefully, if Phil is not too busy coaching a championship down there in Florida, you'll be hearing a little of him too. But I'd love to announce that I'll be doing that very same thing again. We're gonna the DSFL season 7 is coming back. You'll be seeing that in the series in a YouTube page near you, Charger 95. I'm sure Phil will be watching as well, but if not, all
Absolutely.
of you watching there will be we'll be doing the best series that I've ever done. In fact, actually the secret is that I started this series back in August and I kept this a surprise for a lot of folks for a long time. In the coming weeks, I'm going to promote it so that everybody can see it. Everybody will have an opportunity to learn a lot about it. But the DSFL 7 is coming back, and we are doing it better than ever before. And I don't mean that lightly. This will be the best series I've ever done. I put a lot of work into making this happen.
Nick's done a lot of great series, so for him to throw that out there like that means you definitely wanted to tune in. I had a feeling it was something like that, but I'm glad that I got to find out like everybody else did. So I'm looking forward to that. Definitely going to help any way I can, and I do have to keep the streak going of calling the Dream Bowl with you. We've called the first
That
six
that will be
together,
going.
so we will definitely be
Yep.
doing number 7. So definitely check out Charger Dude 95 YouTube channel for that, and we'll do updates around it as well moving forward. While we're making announcements here, I've been talking with Donovan. We are going to bring back the Wrestle Report for this channel. With any
Oh,
luck, in the
cool.
next week or two, I'm going to be back in my actual office on some level. So once I'm in there, it's a little easier to do the show, and I can go back to balancing 2 podcasts and stuff. So might be another week or two, probably after the next pay-per-view. We're going to come back. So a little more content coming back on this episode on this as well. But until then, I might take a small break here to get the office back in some form of shape. But it looks like we're both going to be busy the next few months, man. Get some content out there.
Yeah, shoot, that's what the people want. So we're gonna make it happen. COVID isn't stopping me, and defeats in 99 days isn't going to stop Phil. So let's just let's turn that bad boy around and let's get it going. So, and also I'm curious, are you going to throw in a couple of movie reviews?
I'm trying to get back on track with that with Ted Lasso season 3 coming out soon. If you haven't seen that show, definitely check it out. I'm hoping to get back on track with Luke in that as well. But we're slowly getting back to normal over here in Edgewater. So I'm hoping to get involved with that as well.
Very cool, man. Well, the very exciting spring coming up for us.
Yeah, so just a reminder that the sun will come out tomorrow. It's not always as bright as you hope it is, but what can you do, man? That's the life of a sports fan. Want to thank Nick for brazing the elements here and still doing the show. Not a lot of friends will be fighting COVID and still come on your podcast, so I do appreciate this guy a whole lot, and I hope you guys enjoyed the Super Bowl. For the neutral fans that are out there, and for the Eagle fans, we will rebuild and we will be back someday. So I want to thank you guys for listening. Look out on Nick's channel for more Dream Season stuff, and I'll be back with some more content in the coming weeks. So until then, see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.